In the bucolic, serene town of Cedar Grove, the horrifying murder of Henry Callahan sent seismic shockwaves echoing through the community. The seemingly peaceful, close-knit suburban enclave was torn asunder by a crime fueled by passion and betrayal, revealing the dark secrets hidden beneath the surface of apparently idyllic lives. As the tempest unfolded in August 2015, the Callahans found themselves at its very center. Henry, a charismatic and shrewd 50-year-old real estate magnate, renowned for his business prowess, and Clara, a stylish and enchanting 48-year-old boutique owner, celebrated for her fashion sense and magnetic personality, had been esteemed figures in the community for over 15 years. Their marriage was regarded as perfect, almost too perfect, by all who knew them. They were intimate friends with their next-door neighbors, the Parkers, Simon, an erudite university professor, and Emily, a talented landscape architect. The Parkers, along with their 21-year-old son Jerry, had recently moved to Cedar Grove, seeking refuge from the chaos of urban life and yearning for a quieter existence. Little did these neighbors know that their lives were about to be catastrophically upended. In truth, this description barely scratches the surface. Their lives were about to shatter in a manner that would send reverberations throughout the community and even the country. Henry Callahan had always been a man driven by ambition. Born into a middle-class family in Detroit, he propelled himself up the real estate industry ladder through sheer force of will, intelligence, and a potent combination of charm and relentless determination. By his early 40s, he had constructed a formidable real estate empire, his name becoming synonymous with success, and he was the sort of man that everyone aspired to be associated with. Clara, on the other hand, came from a privileged background. The daughter of a renowned author and a classical pianist, she was raised in an environment that valued culture and refinement. Clara had pursued her passion for art history in college, dreaming of one day curating exhibitions in a prestigious museum. However, she put her aspirations on hold when her then-boyfriend expressed his desire for them to settle down together. Tragically, he later abandoned her for another woman, leaving Clara heartbroken and robbed of the will to pursue her museum dreams. It was during this tumultuous period that she met Henry, and the two instantly connected, deciding to marry soon after. The early years of their marriage were filled with joy and promise. 2 years into their union, Clara and Henry welcomed a new addition to their family. They were overjoyed, and Clara, in particular, was ecstatic about this new chapter in their lives. Henry, ever the devoted husband and father, began to take more time away from his work to care for his growing family. Their household seemed to embody the very definition of happiness and contentment. Sadly, this bliss was not to last. Tragically, their child, born prematurely, did not survive, and Clara's subsequent efforts to conceive proved unsuccessful. The loss cast a long, dark shadow over their once perfect marriage, and the cracks that began to form would ultimately lead to the devastating events that shook Cedar Grove to its core. As the community grappled with the aftermath of Henry's murder, the once peaceful town was forever changed. The dark underbelly of seemingly perfect lives was laid bare, and the residents of Cedar Grove were forced to confront the unsettling truth that even the most idyllic facades can hide sinister secrets. The Callahan story served as a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that the line between perfection and tragedy is often perilously thin. Rewind to the beginnings of their union. The paths of Henry and Clara intertwined at a charity auction in 2000. Henry, already triumphant in his career but yearning for personal connections, was instantly enchanted by Clara's sophistication and poise. Clara, formerly a model who had weathered a stormy relationship and heartache, saw in Henry an opportunity to reconstruct her life. He presented her with emotional sustenance and financial security. Their courtship was swift and impassioned, culminating in a magnificent wedding. The celebration was opulent, set in a historic estate adorned with silk draperies, crystal chandeliers, and a garden bursting with myriads of roses. Clara was resplendent in a designer gown, while Henry embodied the image of a distinguished entrepreneur. The initial years of their marriage were marked by sheer bliss. Henry's profession skyrocketed, garnering him affluence and praise, and he ascended to partner status at his firm, celebrated for his achievements. Clara discovered solace in establishing a boutique, her haven where she could express her creativity and zeal for fashion. The boutique prospered, becoming a favorite among the town's elite and instilling Clara with a sense of purpose. As time wore on, their flawless life began to tarnish. Henry's vocation demanded more of his time, with prolonged evenings at the office and incessant business travels. The once inseparable duo started to drift apart. Clara, feeling increasingly secluded, immersed herself in her boutique. She broadened her enterprise, organized events, and sought to fill the void with her labor. The loss of their child marked a pivotal moment. It was an unspoken wound that both harbored deeply. The nursery they had prepared remained vacant, a perpetual reminder of their sorrow. The inability to conceive again exacerbated the strain. Clara's aspirations of a family dissipated, supplanted by emptiness. She attended fertility treatments alone, silently enduring the emotional and physical tribulations. Henry, though sympathetic, buried himself in work, unable to confront their shared anguish. Their residence, once echoing with laughter and warmth, grew cold and quiet. Clara would spend hours in the nursery, enveloped by the unrealized promise of motherhood. Henry, when present, withdrew into his study, submerging himself in work to evade the insufferable reality. Their dialogues grew brief, devoid of intimacy. Clara's boutique morphed into a sanctuary from the emptiness of her home. She spent extended hours there, finding fleeting solace in the bustle and creative endeavors. Yet each evening, she returned to a house that felt increasingly alien. The chasm between them was tangible, a divide neither knew how to traverse. Their mutual grief and unvoiced fears festered, breeding tension in their lives. By the summer of 2015, the Callahans' union had diminished to a mere facade. To the outside world, they remained the golden couple. Henry stood on the precipice of securing a monumental deal that would cement his industry status. Clara's boutique was thriving, her designs amassing a devoted following. Behind closed doors, however, they were merely cohabitants, akin to strangers. Conversations were scarce, revolving around schedules and social engagements. Physical intimacy had waned, each touch serving as a reminder of their unuttered grief and unsatisfied expectations. Both Henry and Clara found it more convenient to uphold the illusion of happiness than to address the abyss that had expanded between them. Little did they know, this delicate equilibrium was on the brink of disruption, a shift that would impact not only their lives, but also the entire community of Cedar Grove. The Parkers had settled into the residence adjacent to the Callahans in early 2011, seeking a new beginning. Simon, an esteemed literature professor, had accepted a position at a nearby university, enticed by the allure of a quieter life away from the city's bustle. Emily, an accomplished landscape architect, welcomed the move as a chance to bring her artistic vision to new endeavors. Their son Jerry, a college junior studying environmental science, was spending the summer at home, engaged in a local conservation project. The Parkers swiftly earned a reputation for their warmth and intellect, seamlessly integrating into the relaxed atmosphere of Cedar Grove. Simon's captivating lectures at the university garnered him admiration, while Emily's breathtaking garden designs became the neighborhood's highlight. Emily, initially hesitant about the relocation, found herself captivated by the serenity and natural beauty of their new home. It was during a neighborhood gathering in late June that Jerry Parker first saw Clara Callahan in a different light. The Callahans were hosting the event, and Henry, as usual, held court, discussing his latest business exploits. Clara, feeling out of place amidst the crowd, had retreated to the patio for some fresh air. Jerry, seeking a respite from socializing, happened to step outside at the same moment. Their gazes locked, and Jerry offered Clara a tentative smile. They struck up a conversation about gardening, a topic Clara had recently embraced to fill her solitary days. Jerry, with his expertise in environmental science, shared insights and suggestions, and a connection began to blossom. Over the subsequent weeks, Clara and Jerry discovered reasons to spend time together. Clara invited Jerry to assist with her garden, and Jerry welcomed the opportunity to apply his studies practically. As one might expect, their first kiss transpired on a rainy afternoon in early July. Jerry had come over to discuss a new garden layout, and as they worked, a sudden downpour drove them to seek refuge in the Callahan sunroom. As they stood by the window, watching the rain, an unspoken tension filled the air. Clara, feeling a connection she hadn't experienced in years, leaned in and kissed Jerry. For Jerry, the kiss was a revelation, a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. Despite the intricacy of their emotions, they found themselves inexorably drawn together. Their encounters grew more frequent and intense. They were cautious, mindful of the risks. Their meetings were clandestine, often taking place in Clara's boutique or secluded spots around town. Yet as the summer wore on, maintaining their secret became increasingly challenging. They narrowly avoided detection on several occasions. Close calls and near discoveries heightened their anxiety, but the intensity of their emotions kept them returning to each other. Clara felt a renewed sense of joy and passion, something utterly distinct from her life with Henry. Jerry, enchanted by Clara's elegance and the thrill of their forbidden relationship, found himself developing genuine feelings, falling deeper and deeper for the older married woman. August 10th, 2015 dawned as another scorching summer day in Cedar Grove. For Henry Callahan, this day was critical. A vital meeting loomed, one that could solidify his most significant deal to date. Departing early, he left Clara lost in thought, still tucked in bed. Knowing Henry would be absent all day, Clara sent a text to Jerry inviting him over. Jerry, increasingly uneasy with his feelings for Clara, recognized that this love, albeit genuine, was irrational. He resolved to end the affair and saw the message as a chance to confront his emotions. He responded, agreeing to meet. The day crept by for both of them. Clara went through the motions at her boutique, preoccupied and anxious. Jerry, engaged in his conservation project, struggled to concentrate. At 1:30 p.m., Jerry approached the Callahan residence, his heart racing. Clara greeted him with a nervous smile, guiding him to the sunroom where their first kiss had occurred. Jerry started to speak, but Clara, misreading his hesitation, silenced him with a kiss. Despite their reservations, they succumbed to the moment, their longing for each other eclipsing their doubts. Across town, Henry Callahan sat in his office, his exasperation growing. The figures for his deal weren't adding up, and he braced himself for a long night of revisions and negotiations. Henry made an impulsive decision. He would return home, regroup, and gather his thoughts before heading back to the office to wrap up before dinner. At 2:15 p.m., his car pulled into the driveway of their lakeside home in Crestwood. Noticing Jerry Parker's rustic truck parked nearby, he dismissed it, assuming Jerry was assisting Clara with some chores. As he unlocked the front door, the house was silent, yet something felt amiss. A half-empty glass of orange juice sat on the kitchen counter, striking him as odd since Clara disliked orange juice. Then he heard it, a muffled sound emanating from upstairs. Brow furrowed, he ascended the stairs, the noise intensifying as he neared the master bedroom. What he witnessed upon opening the door would be indelibly etched into his memory. His wife, the woman he had cherished for 15 years, was in their bed with Jerry Parker, the 21-year-old neighbor's son, whom he had least suspected of being close to her. Henry's astonishment morphed into fury. Without a moment's thought, he lunged forward, bellowing and demanding to know what they were doing. Jerry panicked, scrambled off the bed, toppling the nightstand in his haste. Clara shrieked, attempting to cover herself with the sheets. Driven by wrath, Henry seized Jerry by the collar, hauling him off the bed. Jerry flailed, gasping, pleading that he could explain, but Henry was beyond reason, his fists lashing out. Amidst the chaos, Jerry's hand found the heavy lamp on the bedside table. Propelled by desperation, he swung it wildly. The lamp struck Henry's head with a sickening thud. Henry staggered, his eyes wide with shock and betrayal, before crumpling to the floor. An eerie silence descended upon the room. Clara's screams shattered the quiet as she struggled to cover herself and comprehend what had just transpired. Blood pooled swiftly around Henry's motionless form. Jerry dropped the lamp, his hands trembling, horror and disbelief etched on his face. He looked at Clara, his voice barely audible. "What have we done?" Clara, her voice quivering yet resolute, insisted they conceal the body. She declared that she couldn't let Jerry go to jail, her eyes wild with fear. Jerry nodded numbly. They hastily dressed, their minds racing with panic and dread. Wrapping Henry's body in a sheet, They struggled under its weight as they carried it downstairs. Each step was filled with anguish and remorse. Finally, they managed to hoist Henry's body into the bed of Jerry's truck, panting from the exertion. Clara drove Henry's car to a nearby parking lot, leaving it there to create the illusion that he had gone out. She then returned home where she and Jerry began the grim task of cleaning up the blood. Every wipe of the cloth felt like a betrayal, the scent of bleach intermingling with their guilt. The master bedroom, once a sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene. For 2 days, Clara and Jerry steered clear of each other, the weight of their secret bearing down on them. Clara fielded calls from Henry's office, informing his colleagues that he was away on a business trip. But when Henry failed to appear for a crucial meeting, his office dispatched someone to the house to check on him. The HR manager stood at the door, suspicion clouding his eyes as he inquired why she hadn't filed a missing person report. Clara, her heart pounding, tried to remain composed, lying that she thought he was on a business trip to deflect suspicion. She contacted the police immediately. The police swiftly arrived, their presence amplifying the tension. They commenced their investigation, interrogating Clara, who grappled to preserve her composure. Meanwhile, Jerry had returned to school, consumed by guilt and dread. He had severed communication with Clara, and they had agreed to cease contact until the storm subsided. Detective Laura Mitchell was assigned to the case, a veteran investigator with a keen mind. She instantly sensed something amiss. Her initial questions were routine, but she quickly probed deeper. Clara's narrative was riddled with inconsistencies, and her anxiety was evident. Mitchell's discerning gaze missed nothing, registering every quaver in Clara's voice and every discrepancy in her story. The case grew more intricate, casting lengthening shadows of suspicion over Cedar Grove. Detective Laura Mitchell initiated her interrogation, meticulously studying Clara's every gesture. She inquired about the last time Clara saw her husband. Clara, attempting to sound persuasive, asserted that he had departed for a business trip on Monday morning. When pressed for specifics about the trip, Clara wavered, stating that he often kept his destinations vague due to the nature of his work. Mitchell nodded, taking notes, and requested access to Henry's phone records and emails. Clara, feeling cornered, consented. Over the ensuing days, the investigation escalated. Mitchell's team found no indication of a business trip in Henry's phone and email records. Neighbors reported seeing Jerry's truck at the Callahan residence the day Henry vanished, prompting Mitchell to revisit Clara. When confronted about Jerry's truck, Clara falsely claimed he was assisting with yard work. Mitchell, dubious, noted the improbability of yard work during the scorching heat of a July afternoon, but temporarily let it pass, turning her attention to Jerry Parker. Jerry, haunted by the memory of Henry's lifeless form, was approached by Mitchell at his school. When questioned about his presence at the Callahan house, Jerry echoed Clara's lie about yard work, his voice trembling. Mitchell, perceiving his fear, disbelieved him. She advised that honesty would serve him better, but Jerry steadfastly maintained his innocence. Mitchell knew she needed more evidence. She summoned forensic teams to the Callahan house, where they uncovered traces of blood that had been hastily cleaned. Clara's story began to disintegrate further. Mitchell noted inconsistencies in Clara's timeline and her escalating anxiety. Despite Clara's attempts to uphold the facade, the pressure intensified. The pivotal moment arrived courtesy of an anonymous informant who had frequently observed Clara and Jerry together, their interactions suspiciously affectionate. Mitchell delved deeper into their relationship, unearthing secret emails and text messages that laid bare the extent of their affair and their frantic efforts to conceal it. Confronted with the evidence, Clara's composed exterior began to fracture. When pressed to explain her communications with Jerry, she attempted to dismiss their relationship as a mere friendship, but Mitchell was unyielding. The detective underscored that friends do not exchange such messages and highlighted the blood traces discovered in the house. Clara held firm, asserting that Henry had departed for a business trip. Mitchell refocused her attention on Jerry, who had been evading contact with Clara. She arranged for Jerry to be brought in for further interrogation. Feeling the heat, Jerry opted to hire a lawyer. During the interrogation, Mitchell methodically presented the evidence, chipping away at Jerry's defenses. She mentioned the blood found in the house and the absence of any business trip, demanding the truth. Jerry's silence, advised by his lawyer, was telling. Forensic experts confirmed the blood evidence belonged to Henry. With mounting evidence, Mitchell secured a search warrant for Jerry's truck, where they discovered fibers matching the sheets from the Callahan house and additional blood traces. Henry's body was found in a nearby parking lot, hastily concealed. Armed with irrefutable evidence, Mitchell swiftly moved to arrest Clara and Jerry. Clara was taken into custody, her face a picture of resignation, while Jerry was arrested, his fate sealed by the overwhelming proof of their crime. The community of Cedar Grove reeled from the scandal. The once idyllic facade was forever shattered as the trial unfolded. More secrets surfaced. Henry's colleagues testified about his escalating stress and frequent arguments with Clara. Neighbors recounted the tension they had sensed in the Callahan household. The jury grappled with a complex web of motivations and actions, each thread leading to the tragic denouement. Clara took the stand, her composure crumbling under the weight of her guilt. She confessed to the affair, but maintained she never intended for Henry to die. She recounted the moments leading up to Henry's death, describing how Jerry, in a state of panic, had grabbed the lamp. Jerry, barely holding back tears, narrated the fateful day with a mix of remorse and sorrow. He detailed the confrontation with Henry, the struggle, and the moment he struck Henry in a blind panic. Jerry's parents sat in the courtroom, their faces etched with grief and disbelief. They listened as their son recounted how he had become entwined in Clara's life and how his actions had resulted in Henry's death. The sorrow on their faces was palpable, a stark contrast to the stoic facade Jerry strove to maintain. Mitchell's testimony proved pivotal. She laid out the investigation, the discrepancies in Clara and Jerry's accounts, and the forensic evidence that ultimately led to their arrest. She described the discovery of Henry's body, the fibers in Jerry's truck, and the blood traces in the Callahan residence. Her systematic presentation painted a vivid picture of culpability. The courtroom was filled with tension as the jury deliberated for days, the gravity of their decision palpable. The silence in the chamber was nearly unbearable. When the jury finally returned with a verdict, the foreman declared, "Jerry Parker, we find you guilty of second-degree murder. Clara Callahan, we find you guilty of being an accessory to murder." Clara received a 15-year prison sentence, while Jerry was sentenced to 25 years. The community of Cedar Grove was left to grapple with the aftermath, forever altered by the events that had transpired. Detective Mitchell, haunted by the case, couldn't help but ponder the alternate paths that might have been taken. The Callahans and Parkers had been ordinary individuals, their lives entwined in unforeseen ways. The tragedy that befell them served as a stark reminder of the fragility of normalcy's veneer. In the hushed wake of the trial, Cedar Grove strove to reclaim its tranquil existence. The specter of the Callahan case lingered, a persistent reminder that even the most serene communities can conceal dark secrets. The Parker family, devastated by the revelations and the loss of their son to the penal system, withdrew from public life, their anguish a testament to the far-reaching repercussions of the tragic liaison. The Callahan house, once a symbol of prosperity and harmony, stood vacant, a mute witness to the life that had once flourished within its walls.